Our speaker is Diane Bailey. She is the Executive Director of Menlo Spark, which is a community nonprofit helping the city of Menlo Park become carbon neutral by 2025. Diane comes from the Natural Resources Defense Council, where she spent almost 14 years working at the local, state, federal, and international level, promoting improved air quality and public health through reduced fossil fuel use, advances in clean transportation, and pollution prevention in industry. Previously, Diane worked at Citizens for a Better Environment in the city of Chicago and a local transportation planning agency in Houston. She holds a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from Washington University and a master's degree in environmental engineering from Rice University. Please join me in welcoming Diane to the stage.
Hey everyone, it's great to be here. It's great to see so many people who really care deeply about climate issues here on a Sunday afternoon. So thank you for being here. I'm going to start with a question for you. How many of you guys think that it's possible for a city to go completely climate neutral or zero carbon by 2025? Let's see a show of hands. Most of you, probably more of you after hearing from Mark Jacobson. Yeah. Good. I was a little skeptical when I first heard of Menlo Spark. I was excited. It was sort of my dream job. But I kind of felt like, in the sprawly suburbs, I don't know. But anyway, I have two co-founders. They're not here today, Mitch Slomiak and Chris DeParty. And their story starts as being local environmental quality commissioners for the city of Menlo Park. They were very frustrated by the slow rate of progress in a city like Menlo Park, which borders Stanford University, has tech titans like Facebook, and the largest concentration of venture capital firms outside of Manhattan. So a lot of resources in a fairly progressive, well-educated community, but sort of crawling when it came to climate progress. And they decided to start an outside nonprofit to sort of work with the city, help the city, and also at the same time kind of pressure the city to move at a faster pace. And they started with some surveys, what can be done, looking at, these are just a couple of the things we do, community organizing, connecting the city with technical resources, and we started in 2015, so we're 3 years in. Here are a couple of the results of the surveying that was done just before we received the nonprofit status. And three things came out. Folks living in Menlo Park, they were really interested in promoting economic vitality, protecting civic heritage, and strengthening community. Now, Menlo Park actually has a surprising amount of diversity. There is a large low-income community on the bay side of the 101, and it's known as primarily a white affluent suburb, but it's actually surprisingly and delightfully diverse. So those are the themes we were looking at. Now, a lot of folks were interested in just carrying on their lives and not really wanting to deal with climate change. And so we've been trying to make the case that the benefits of addressing climate change early and all of the measures that we want to talk about and that Professor Jacobson talked about can actually benefit a community, that we can have economic prosperity, that we can have cleaner air, civic pride, nicer, more vibrant downtowns if we act on climate sooner. And of course, there are all the threats of climate change that you know of and that we are starting to live now. We've lived the past few years with more and more extreme weather and wildfires that have the fingerprints of climate change on them. And so we know that we're already feeling the impacts. Okay, so what are we going to do? I am an engineer, and so I like starting with data to figure out what is our pathway to reach our zero carbon goal by 2025 for Menlo Park. This is, I apologize, it's a little hard to see. This is a pie chart of the greenhouse gas emissions for the city of Menlo Park. This was sort of our starting place to formulate what's our pathway to zero. Knowing where our emissions are coming from is the most important foundation. And what this tells us is that more than half of our carbon footprint in the city is coming from energy use, building energy use. About a third of that is electricity, and then balance 2/3 is natural gas. So that's the orange and the red wedges. And there's a yellow wedge that's sort of a mystery box. That's direct energy use. We think that that is a cogen power plant at one of the businesses in Menlo Park, but it's privacy protected data, so we'll never know. But actually, I think it's related to SRI, Stanford Research Institute, so if anyone knows how to reduce that carbon, they do. And then 40% is transportation. And why am I dwelling on this so much? Well, it's because this is sort of the typical suburban carbon footprint. This is what most of any town USA or suburban USA looks like, roughly split between transportation, greenhouse gas emissions, and building energy use. So what does that tell us? It tells us that most of our carbon is coming from fossil fuels. So it's a big fat target on fossil fuels, and as Dr. Jacobson explained, fossil fuels carry a pretty steep price in terms of health impacts in the wake of community destruction from the way they are extracted. Okay, so this is sort of the nuts and bolts of our pathway to zero. And I'm not going to go through each bar, but there's a pretty hefty analysis, and we worked with Rocky Mountain Institute and some expert advisors to figure out, what are our stepping stones to get to zero? Is it even possible? Looking out across the horizon, we see so many different measures reducing carbon at the city level, and so we felt like we can sort of piece those measures together like a puzzle. And this is what it looks like. I'm going to, instead of reading this for FT, I'm going to step through the individual components. But we started with about 300,000 tons of carbon with the first inventory in about 2009. Was when we started tracking these things in Menlo Park. Okay, so clean power is probably the very biggest component. And I'm not going to dwell on this too much because I think Dr. Jacobson did an awesome job explaining all the different ways to get to clean power. But I will stop and talk about Peninsula Clean Energy. That's the Community Choice Energy Agency in San Mateo County. And Dr. Jacobson alluded to this a little bit. Stanford is under Silicon Valley Clean Energy.
Could you hold the mic closer a little more consistently? Thanks.
Stanford is under Silicon Valley Clean Energy, our neighbor to the south. Menlo Park is just north of that in San Mateo County. Community Choice Energy started in San Mateo County in 2016, so it's really new. It was a total startup. It took about 6 months to launch. So in October of 2016, they started onboarding customers. Everyone's automatically enrolled per state law. And I think by Earth Day of the next year, 2017, everyone was enrolled. All of the corporate customers like Facebook, government, and residential customers. People didn't know they were enrolled, but everyone was enrolled, and they've had a pretty substantial marketing campaign since then to let people know that they're getting cleaner energy that's about 5% cheaper than PG&E, the incumbent utility. So it's been a great deal for Menlo Park. And the greatest thing is that they launched at 75% carbon-free power as their base portfolio. And they allow anyone to opt up into their Eco 100 option, which is 100% renewable. And over the past year or so, they've inched up so that the portfolio is about 85% carbon-free, and they have a target to be carbon-free 100% in the next few years. And so our motto for this year has become electrify everything, because now we know that we have the clean power to back that up. Okay, so conserving energy is still important. Some people talk about this as megawatts, and I think Dr. Jacobson had this as a substantial part of his pathway to 100%. Building really efficient buildings and improving efficiency of current buildings, or extreme retrofits, as I would say, is one of the most important ways to get to zero. We, of course, need to get rid of the natural gas in our buildings, and that's a thorny one. But one thing that we want to focus on in the coming years is deep energy retrofits, particularly for multifamily buildings and low-income housing. But here's an example of just a really simple thing you can do to save a lot of energy and carbon, which is installing a Nest thermostat or one of those programmable thermostats in your home. And if everyone in Menlo Park did that, they would save about $76 million in avoided energy costs. So this is our way of just proving that a lot of the building blocks towards a zero carbon city can save you a lot of money as well. Okay, travel light, or zero carbon transportation. There are really two elements that we're getting at here. We're getting at electrifying the vehicle fleet, cars and trucks, both, and also providing safe and really convenient alternatives to driving, because if everyone continued their driving habits as they are today in single occupancy vehicles, even if they all went electric, there's just not enough room on the roads. And anyone who's traveled the 101 on rush hour can attest to some of the traffic troubles of Silicon Valley. And so we are focused on both. We really want to see the entire vehicle fleet transition, not to hybrids, but to full electric vehicles, including trucks, and there are more and more models every day. And there are some companies based in Silicon Valley, like Proterra, making electric buses, like Motive Power, making electric delivery trucks. And so there's sort of a local economic support for that. Okay, reducing waste is the last one I want to mention. It's pretty small. The carbon footprint of waste in Menlo Park is tiny, but it's a really easy one. We don't need to reinvent the wheel because San Francisco already has a wonderful zero waste plan that other cities can follow. And if Menlo Park followed that, they'll save about $800,000 a year. A lot of savings. Okay, community sustainability. I want to talk about this for a minute because a lot of the carbon emissions in Menlo Park are actually not officially counted in the inventory. Things like the products you consume, your flying habits. We call them off inventory carbon, but it's still carbon and it's really important to reduce. And so we have a special tool to track personal carbon footprints, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so this is what our pathway to zero carbon looks like. It's on our website, check it out. If you hover your mouse over each little building block or stepping stone, you'll see how many tons of carbon you can reduce. I'm not going to read all of the different steps, but I'll note that we're about 70% of the way there with our pathway to zero carbon. That last big stepping stone is about 30% of offsets. We don't want it to be offsets. We hope to figure out more measures to add to that. Maybe it's carbon negative products like concrete that is formed by using CO2, and so carbon negative. We're not sure how we're going to reach the final 30%, but we have most of the measures to get us there by 2025, and view that last bit as sort of a transitional offset zone that we hope will only last a few years. Okay, so we're inspired by a lot of leaders in our community of Menlo Park, and we decided in Earth Day of 2016, I think, to recognize people who are doing great things for climate. We had this local climate action heroes contest, and we had about 50 different community members and businesses who participated. This is just a couple of them. Our former mayor, Kirsten Keith, is up there leading a group bike ride. She's active. Oh, the dog. That was another former mayor, Councilmember Ray Mueller. That's his dog, who stole his car keys, sending a message to the family to walk and bike a little more. Yeah. Great dog, right? The local climate action heroes are on our website. You can check them out. On the upper, left corner is Lauren Sweezy. She's the environmental and community leader of Facebook, and she vowed to bike to work more often. Everyone took different pledges. The next person swapped out her fossil fuel vehicle for a Leaf and also ripped out her water-intense lawn. And it goes on and on. And these are really inspiring stories. And we hope that it would be sort of contagious, that people would see their neighbors doing great things and try some of those steps. Okay, so we tried to start off with other inspiring projects in 2015. This was our first year. I'm going to whip through this, try to do that quickly. We had a clean energy proclamation on Earth Day. We established a partnership with Facebook. They're the very largest employer in Menlo Park, so that was important to us. And they're also really leaders in terms of green building and building they are doing a lot of. They're building about 1 million square feet of office space in Menlo Park, so a pretty big chunk. And then the other thing that we wanted to get started early on is excitement over EVs, electric cars. And so we teamed up with the cities of Menlo Park and San Mateo to do an EV Expo. And we've done that 3 years in a row now, so that's been great. A couple other projects in 2016. We started a partnership with Facebook to do solar homes with Grid Alternatives. How many folks know Grid Alternatives? Good, great. So that is a locally based nonprofit that's actually spread globally now, installing solar panels for low-income homeowners, and now they're getting into multifamily, and they're working with Native Americans. And it's a really cool program where they take a little bit of corporate sponsorship funding to put free solar on people's homes. And it's really important in Menlo Park to help some of the low-income homeowners because there's some pretty serious gentrification pressure in the community. And so it's helping people on fixed income stay in their homes. And we've done about 35 homes that spread to East Palo Alto as well. And now this year Facebook is taking over the project. They don't need our help anymore, and it should just keep on going by itself. So we're excited about that. We also teamed up with the Boys and Girls Club to do a little bit of youth outreach. And we're happy to report that thanks to generosity from Facebook, they got solar panels on their rooftop as well in January of this year. It was a 2-year process. Let's see, I'm going to skip. Okay, in June of 2016, we launched a website called the Menlo Green Challenge, and I have these little cards outside. Please take one, you can check it out online. The cards look like this. The Menlo Green Challenge is a way for people to figure out their own personal carbon footprint. It walks you through some survey questions about your household and your lifestyle. Pretty simple survey, about 10 questions, might take you 15, 20 minutes to fill out, and you need your utility information. But on the site is about 60 or so different actions categorized by water savings, energy savings, community activism, wherever you're most interested in. You can sort for different actions you could take to reduce your carbon footprint. And right now we just started a Spark Green campaign for 2018. We have lawn signs, and we're trying to build some community excitement, and we'll be giving away prizes for people who participate, people who have the lowest carbon footprints. There are different badge levels that you can meet on the site to try to encourage people to take more actions. And we have about, let's see, we've worked with 2 schools so far, MA High School and La Entrada Middle School, and we have almost 400 people using the site. We hope to double that this year. Okay, last year we started a really exciting collaboration. It's actually led by another nonprofit called the Clean Coalition, and you can see the little logo cloud. Those are all of our partners in the Peninsula Advanced Energy Communities Project. It's kind of a mouthful. We call it PAIC. Anyway, the goal of PAIC, it's a California Energy Commission funded project to build model advanced energy communities. What the heck does that mean? Well, and we're focused in San Mateo County. It means that we're focusing on removing some of the permitting and financing roadblocks to using state-of-the-art clean energy technology in communities, and we have one sort of sustainability model with the Town of Atherton Civic Center rebuild. And then the phase 2 of the project will focus on Redwood City and East Palo Alto, installing EV chargers in multifamily housing, and combining that with solar rooftops and energy storage. We're really just trying to showcase what happens when you combine all of the state-of-the-art clean energy technology. So what Menlo Spark did was we surveyed the best clean energy practices of cities around the world, focusing here in the Bay Area, and then working out throughout California, throughout the US, and looking abroad at some of the best measures. Last summer we published a report that just documents in those 5 areas: renewable energy, efficiency, zero net energy buildings, and EV charging infrastructure. And then we have a bonus category of cool projects like in-water pipe energy generation and things like that. So the best energy practices are sort of showcased in those categories, and what we did is we distilled those down into a couple of model ordinances that cities can adopt. And so we worked with San Mateo County and their legal staff to draft some of these model ordinances, and the language is available online now, but we're working with some local experts to vet it a little further, and then the next step will be to work with other nonprofits to get cities to actually adopt these model ordinances. So we're excited to embark on that this year. The model ordinances support EV charging in multifamily buildings. It supports renewable energy, renewable water and space heating, and solar carports. And we hope to have a second round of model practices. Okay, so wrapping up, I just want to emphasize that going for zero carbon is a pretty ambitious goal, and we can't do it alone. We really rely on partners. We're a member of our Chamber of Commerce in Menlo Park. We work with businesses, we work with city governments, and not just the city of Menlo Park, because carbon doesn't really stay within our city borders. So we work with all of the Silicon Valley cities and counties and try to collaborate with local nonprofits. And then the residents are really the key, engaging residents to find out what their own carbon footprint is and get active. Okay, so this is my information, and I would really encourage you to get on our website, check out our plan, and give us some feedback. I would love to hear from you guys. What do you think of our pathway to zero? Do you think it's doable? Do you have ideas for additional measures? What do you think of the Menlo Green Challenge? Have you tried some of the measures? Leave some comments and let us know how those measures work out for you. If we have a moment, I have a couple more slides.
Sure.
Okay. Sometimes working on climate issues can get depressing, but, I lost my picture. Okay, well, I'll just go back and say, you don't have to give up all the things you love to go zero carbon. It does not require living in a cave. That's okay. You guys can imagine a picture of people living in a cave. But here, I'm going to take a picture walk. These images are more important. Okay, so I want to try to inspire people to envision the future that they want without fossil fuels. We're sort of reliant on fossil fuels now, but it doesn't have to be that way. We can think about a future filled with electric vehicles and solar-covered EV charging stations with batteries, completely self-sufficient and fossil-free. And we can, while we're sitting in traffic, stuck in traffic, we can dream up a day when, even in the suburbs, we have better public transit, modern public transit, grade-separated public transit that lifts us up out of traffic, and having mobility choices where we're not just reliant on cars. And then the last one, just thinking about, and Dr. Jacobson touched on this a little bit, thinking about the resources that we have, the built environment. Can we cover the entire built environment with PV panels? And can we figure out creative ways to put energy storage in there, couple energy storage with solar or wind or other way, geothermal, even the in-pipe hydro generation that I mentioned. There are all these new ways to generate renewable, clean energy that are cost competitive with fossil fuels. And so instead of sort of looking back historically as our guideposts, thinking ahead about the way we want our built environment to look, insisting when we do renovations or when we move into a new building, insisting on clean renewable energy, insisting on fossil-free products, on fossil-free heating, renewable heating. And I would love to hear your ideas for other measures that we can try. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to ask a few questions. I have the first one again. Diane, this is so impressive, and it's really encouraging to see a city nearby, California, is doing so much. Is this a complete anomaly, or are there other cities in California anywhere near the smart plants that you guys have?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Well, our neighboring city of Palo Alto is probably way further ahead than we are on their pathway to zero. The city's official goal is an 80% carbon reduction by 2030, so really aggressive. I'm not sure I know of any cities that have adopted a zero carbon goal as aggressively as 2025. Maybe there are some by 2040 or 2050. I know that Sydney has a carbon-free goal that's aggressive, but I think that that's only for government emissions and not citywide. There's one thing I forgot to mention. If Menlo Park went zero carbon and we stopped there, it wouldn't really matter that much. Our real goal is to spur more activity in suburban cities. Menlo Park only has about 35,000 people. It's really small. And what we want to do is inspire a network of Spark USA or Spark Us or whatever we want to call it. Inspire a network of small cities acting on climate, because if only the large cities act on climate, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, most of the large cities in the U.S. are fairly progressive and leading on this issue, but it just doesn't get us to where we need to go in terms of carbon reductions, and particularly in light of the backward movement of the federal level.
Yes.
Yeah, so my question is in lines with that. What's the energy use of Menlo Park compared to the energy use in California? Do you have an answer? Do you know the answer to that?
So the per capita energy use?
No, I mean the gross energy use. Like, what is Menlo Park even close to material given in the context of California?
I sorry, I can't answer that. I can get back to you. I don't know how it compares to California, but I do know that our local utility or community choice energy will soon be 100% carbon free. And so what will be the balance of natural gas use by buildings, I think is maybe the question.
No, the question is
It's a small percentage.
it's a very small percentage, right?
Oh.
And then just, do you have a sense of what that is?
Oh, right. No, like I said,
You
the
know,
national park, if we go carbon free, it's a blip. It's nothing. What
Right.
the real impact is spurring other cities to act. Yes.
Other questions?
And I'll just add that
Through a lot of individual, piece by piece motivation.
well, the Peninsula Advanced Energy Communities collaboration is meant to spur that. So what we're trying to do is propagate what's happening in Menlo Park county-wide. It's a San Mateo County collaboration. And then the Energy Commission's goal in funding us is to propagate it statewide.
Dan?
Yeah, I have a question. Is the city going to subsidize some of this work? Because if you think about like rentals, for example, there's not, if you have a landlord, for example, they're not going to go spend a whole ton of money to renovate stuff, to say take out gas or something like that. And if they do, it's going to go back to the renter. It's going to end up costing them. So
Yeah.
for some of these retrofits to happen, you really have to address those things.
Right. That's an excellent question. We need a stable revenue stream to deal with the deep energy retrofits that we need and the split incentives. What do you do when the building owner is not paying the utility bills? Tenants are paying. And what we're seeing is that oftentimes it's the lowest income tenants who pay the highest utility bills and have no control over their heating infrastructure, how drafty their dwelling might be. And so we're very helpful that Peninsula Clean Energy and the other community choice energy agencies, as they become more and more stable and fill out their sort of rainy day rate stabilization accounts, they're going to have millions of dollars of extra funding for community clean energy projects. And we'll be working with them and really pressing hard for a good portion of that excess revenue to go towards low-income multifamily retrofits and projects like that. One of the aims of formulating these community choice energy companies is to bring the money back to the community and invest locally. And so we think that can help address the problem. If it's not sufficient, I think that we really need to start thinking seriously about carbon taxes, carbon fees, climate impact fees for development, all of the above.
Other questions?
Hi.
Steve?
Shoot.
All right.
I was curious what level of commitment the city has made to the 2025 goal, if they're just completely linked with you, or if you're working on them.
Yeah, that's a great question. It depends on who you ask. We try to work collaboratively with the city. We're so lucky to have a climate fellow this year, and we've dedicated a quarter of her time to help on city projects. Just as an extra resource for the city, the city's official carbon reduction goal is it is a 27% greenhouse gas reduction goal by 2020. That sounds really lame, but actually it's one of the more ambitious goals in the Bay Area because we're staring 2020 in the face. We're going to be pushing them for a much more aggressive goal to come. But the city, we don't have any illusion that they'll ever adopt our carbon neutral goal. The issue for cities is that they want to see the financing in place, and they also feel a legal responsibility if they make those claims that they'll have to fulfill them. And if they don't have the money and funding in place to do that, and they don't have the staffing in place, I think it's difficult for cities to make that commitment.
Other questions?
Diane, great job. And although I'm from Marin, where we have the first CCA in the state, I'm in a condition of serious envy over a statistic that you mentioned, which I think you said that your CCA's baseline is 85% carbon-free energy. Is it 70?
It started at 75%.
Yeah.
But, oh my gosh, they have purchased so much new renewable energy. And this is additional energy. So they're building solar plants in the Central Valley.
Okay.
I think that they've commissioned enough new renewable energy to cover about a third of the county's load. That's the new energy. And then they're also doing contracts for existing. Silicon Valley Clean Energy launched at 100% carbon-free. And so I think there's a friendly competition going, and we see the dominoes going around the Bay, new CCE starting. I think soon the Bay Area will be ringed with new community choice energy. So thank you to Marin for starting that.
Do you have a light green, dark green, or deep green choice?
Not the same way as Marin. And so I think that Marin allows a customer to purchase local renewable energy.
100% deep green, yes.
100% deep green. So there are just two choices right now for PCE. It's the base portfolio, I think they call it Eco Plus. It's 85% carbon free, and then Eco 100 is 100% renewable, but it's not guaranteed that it's local. They do have a local clean energy, or a local renewable goal, and I can't recall the exact goal, but it's on their website.
Thank you.
Thank you. How are you feeling about your chances of success in 2025, and what is your major critical success factor to achieving it?
Yeah, okay, so every year we're sort of checking on the inventory. The numbers are really slow to come in. And so for the longest time we were dealing with 2013 carbon data, which is so frustrating because it has nothing to do with the transportation conditions of today. So we estimate that we've reduced about 30% of the carbon relative to the inventory that we started with. And we have the measures that are either conceptually in place or sort of we've set the groundwork in motion for about a total of 70% of the greenhouse gas reduction by 2025. So we have the 30% black box, and we're going to keep working on that every year. I think initially our co-founders were wanting to get most of the way there and then purchase offsets to get to 100%. But again, viewing offsets as sort of a temporary transition. No one's comfortable, no one on our team is comfortable with offsets as the answer.
Other questions? Okay, yes.
Ways. One is you might consider using PACE and marrying an adaptation of PACE with CCE, and the target would be enough solar on every roof and canopies over parking to cover both the building and the vehicle in as many places as possible throughout.
Yes, that's great. So PACE is pay as you save. It's a special on-utility bill financing tool that helps people make smart decisions about installing renewable energy and energy-efficient equipment.
It goes through the property tax.
And PACE.
PACE is built off the property tax, and so if you move, whoever picks up and gets the benefits picks up the payments. So it's very flexible that way.
Great. Okay, I thought you were talking about PACE, pay as you save. PACE is important. That's a special, as you described, it's a way to pay back your clean energy investments on your property tax bill. The loan rates are really high, and they don't cancel out very well for most people here in the Bay Area, except for we recommend it for split incentive conditions. So when there's a landlord leasing out a commercial space and the tenant really wants the improvements and they're not getting anywhere, then PACE is a great solution for that kind of commercial split incentive issue. Our vision is for Menlo Park to be a net positive energy producer and really to cover every surface with renewable energy technology and also to be an incubator for new technology. Can we do that in the next 5 years? I don't know, but you know what? We're in the middle of Silicon Valley, so we better try.
I think the technology will be available for building integrated solar that's also a ceramic plate within 3 to 5 years.
One more question?
Yeah, are you signing PPAs with the aggregate programs generation on the renewable side? And how long?
That's a complicated question. Okay, so power purchase agreements are a way to finance renewable energy where it's zero money down. We're agnostic to PPAs. We suggest them if you don't have financial wherewithal to purchase renewable energy. We suggest that as a pretty good deal. It's a win-win. You get the renewable and you save money on your bill. A lot of businesses that we talk to are skeptical and nervous, and so we really promote an all-of-the-above approach, challenging people to get to net zero any way that they would like. In fact, there's just one last thing I want to mention that I kind of glossed over earlier. One of our big wins in 2017 was a general plan update for Menlo Park where we have new zoning code, and it covers only one portion of the city. It's the portion that's on the bay and growing the fastest, about 2 million square feet of new commercial development over the next few years. Will have to meet zero carbon building standards. And the way that it's framed in the zoning code, there's a lot of flexibility there, about 4 different options, including PPAs, or community solar or on-site solar to get to a zero carbon building. One of the options is to purchase offsets. We don't like that option, but it was sort of a political necessity to get the zero carbon standard passed. And now that it's on the books, we are looking at other cities to challenge them who wants to match Menlo Park and also see if we can take it citywide.
Okay, let's thank Diane.